Welcome to the Latina Moms Building Wealth interview series. Today I have with me a special guest, Nilda Ortega from Excel Tax Solutions. I'm really excited to have you today. Good morning. Hi, Nilda. How are you doing?
Good morning, Michelle. Thank you so much for this opportunity. It's truly an honor to be here with you and your tribe. But before we truly get started with the chat today, I do want to give you your flowers, Michelle. You are a trailblazer with all the projects that you have completed, started, and still working on. I am so proud of you and thank you for showing us, mamas, that there's so much that there is to accomplish, even though we have kids. So thank you, Michelle.
Thank you so much. That was very nice of you. I appreciate that. Yeah, I think as moms, we need to work together. We truly need to work in collaboration. And only we understand the nuttiness that we're going through behind the scenes, right? So today, Nilda, I really wanted to talk to my audience a little bit about the importance of having someone like you on their team, right? I think so many times as people, and especially in our culture and our community, we struggle to pay for things, right? Like we want to do everything ourselves. There's a little pride behind us, right? Like yo puedo, and I don't want to ask nobody. It's embarrassing. But I think when it comes to money, and especially when it comes to taxes, we really need to seek help from a professional, somebody that knows, somebody that's up to date with the new laws, with the changes, somebody that breaks it down, especially in our community. So many times we're like, sign here, do this, do that, right? And we're like, wait, what did I just sign? Like, I don't even know what I just signed, right? Like,
Mhm.
because we are a trusting culture, like in our culture, there's this trust factor, right? That we help each other, that we trust one another, and it's just part of our culture. So I'm really happy to have you today. I had never heard of an IRS enrolled agent, to be honest with you. So I'm super excited for you to share a little bit about what is it that you do? How did you get started?
So thank you, Michelle. So I'm going to go ahead and start with the IRS Enrolled Agent designation. So my name is Nilda Ortega. I'm an IRS Enrolled Agent, and I am the owner of the virtual tax firm, Excel Tax Solutions. And I'm also a mom. I have a 7-year-old daughter and a 4-year-old son. So the Enrolled Agent designation, I know that it's very not new, but a designation your community probably hasn't heard of. So what is it? The enrolled agent designation is the highest credential that IRS awards. And how do you obtain this as a designation, just in case anyone in your community is interested in getting this? So you don't need a formal education, meaning you don't need a bachelor's or master's or anything like that. So basically, we have to take 3 exams: business, taxes, personal taxes, and then tax law. And then IRS does a thorough background check. And then once you pass that, then you have your EA designation, your enrolled agent designation. To keep it, we have to have so many CPEs per year or every 2 years. And then we have to be compliant with our financial and tax obligations. Now, to go back to how I got into taxes. So I got my master's in accounting, and the goal was obviously to sit for the CPA exam. And when I was in school, I worked 2 seasons for a major tax company. I completely loved it. And people automatically had trust in me, but at that time I didn't feel like I knew what I was doing. So my goal at the time was like, okay, when I graduate with my master's and I study for the CPA exam, I'm going to open my own tax firm because I'm going to have the education, I'm going to have the license, I'm going to be super equipped to get it started. But when I graduated with my master's, I got married and then I got pregnant with my daughter. So I was still on this goal. I was still studying for the CPA exam. But what was happening was, any new moms with a newborn know that you don't sleep. And I was failing the exams, Michelle, and I had to make a decision. I had to put my ego aside. I had to take a pause and say, you know what, right now, it's not the season for me to pursue this rigorous licensing designation. Can't handle it. But
Mhm.
deep inside, I still wanted to start my own firm, and I still wanted to have a designation to set myself apart from other taxpayers. I'm sorry, tax preparers.
Mhm.
So I came across the EA designation on social media. I looked it up. I'm like, okay, that's perfect for me. It's directly from IRS. It's not as rigorous as a CPA. and it's going to set me apart from the rest of the tax preparers. So once I did that, I started the tax firm when my daughter was 2 years old, and I was pregnant with my second child.
Wow.
And the rest is history.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that, Nilda. Thank you so much for sharing your story, your struggles, your challenges, but most importantly, for being super transparent about motherhood. And this is something that as Latinas, as women, we don't talk about as often, right? I always say every woman comes to that fork, that moment where you need to make a decision based on your values in that season, right? And so when that time came, you got pregnant, had a baby. Now you're like, hey, am I going to continue the CPA route and semi-ignore my child because I got to study and do what I need to do? Or am I going to find something that works for me now? And I think so many times we don't do that. And so kudos to you for number one, making a decision on the values like, hey, I value this time, I value this season with my child, but I also value my career that I just don't want to plainly stop. I don't want to give up. Right. So I'm going to do something that works for me and my family now. So that's
Yes.
awesome. And kudos to you for doing that. And can you share a little bit about, you said, you had to make the decision, you got married, the CPA was something in your heart, but in the season, talk about some of the lessons that you've learned, becoming an enrolled agent. Like, what are some things that you didn't know that you wish that people in the community knew?
Okay. So I would say that so when I decided to start my practice, I wanted to be different. And one of the things that I did was just to set it up virtually. And this is pre-COVID, right? So it was pretty weird at that time to have a virtual tax preparation company. You know, we're used to going to an office, dropping off our documents, sitting in front of someone. Um, and then they enter the data, and then after a few minutes they're like, okay, you owe, hey, oh no, you have a balance due. And then it's like rush, rush, rush. Person doesn't have time to answer your questions, and or the client feels intimidated to ask any questions. And then when you talk and you see all those people waiting for the person that's in front of you, there's this inherent rush. So there's a lot of questions that go unanswered. And I think that creates a lot of lack of knowledge, a lot of fear that there is for tax authorities because people don't get their questions answered. So when I set up my tax firm, I decided to do things differently. I cater mostly to people that have kids, working parents that can't sit for 2 or 3 hours in an office with their kids, and they have a lot going on. So most of my appointments, I would say the majority, are late evening and weekends. The other thing that's very different with my firm is that I take my time in explaining all forms, all schedules in the tax return. I would say that people would criticize me, not criticize me, but say, hey, you're not as profitable as you could be because you take too much time with each client. You can see, and I could hear this, you could see 2 or 3 clients in that 1 or 2 hours. And instead you're taking, you're only seeing one person in 2 hours. But I don't care. I run my virtual practice. My practice is very different than the rest because my goal is to make sure that all my clients truly understand how taxes work, how the forms go back, to each other, how the
Mhm.
taxes are calculated, and for my clients to understand truly why there's a balance due and why there is a potential refund. And then also during that time, because it's virtual, then they feel comfortable asking me questions as we go through the forms.
Right.
So at the end of the meeting, they'll know exactly what they signed. And then for next year, they'll be better prepared. And I can say and confidently say that I think I have reduced their fear with IRS
Mm.
because they know exactly what was electronically submitted to the tax authorities.
Yeah, I think you're correct. There's a sense of pressure, right? Like you're in line and there's like somebody behind you and like, here's a packet. And, so it is great to have someone like you virtually, especially for us busy moms. And, you and I took forever to schedule this interview because we're both on the move and on the go. So I think that's awesome. And definitely needed, right? It's needed and we need to move and transition. And the beauty about having a business, and you said this, often you're criticized, and I think I'm criticized kind of similar, right? Is that it's your business, right? And you're going to run it based on what works for you. That's why you're a business owner. The freedom, the ability that you have to create your schedule in your business to make it function for you and your family. And I think that's beautiful. And unfortunately, not everybody has that freedom. Right. Some people just take clients and take. I'm pretty selective with my clients as well. So I think it's great to work with somebody that you want to work with as well and that wants to work with you. So I think that's awesome. Know that as we move a little bit, I know that you attend conferences. I see you constantly educating yourself, learning about new things. For me, when I work with someone, I think it's so important I don't just want somebody to do data entry and data input. Like that's not what I'm looking for, right? When I'm looking for somebody who can help me, I'm looking for somebody that's, every year things change. And like you said, people are so afraid of the IRS. Like there's this fear factor. Instead of understanding, hey, let me understand the law and let me see how I can maximize, right? Because at the end of the day, some of these like contributions, like retirement accounts and all kinds of stuff, like they're there for a reason for us to take advantage of them, right? And sometimes we just don't. Can you tell us a little bit about who do you generally work with and who can you assist? Who do you work with?
Okay, so I'll first talk a little bit about the attending conferences and seminars and all that. So every year, it's important for all of us in the tax preparation community, I would say EAs, CPAs, and anyone that doesn't have an official designation, would be to attend these seminars and conferences. So even though that not every year there's not major tax changes or tax law, it's still so important to be in that room with other professionals that do the same thing that we do. Also, there's always things that are going on that don't make them the media, right? So for instance, last week I attended one seminar and they discussed the Corporate Transparency Act. So there's obviously it's a big public law and there's a lot of sections. And one of the sections is that individual taxpayers, we can withdraw from our 401k or retirement account. There's two sections. One is for personal reasons up to $1,000. And then the other one, I don't know if it's new or not, but I'm assuming it is. It's for anyone that is a victim of domestic violence. They can withdraw up to $10,000. So for these two withdrawals, for the year 2026, when these taxpayers file their taxes, there's no penalty on this withdrawal. The money, the 10,000 or the 1,000 or whatever gets withdrawn will still be included as part of the taxable income, but the penalty will be waived. So that's huge. So if someone didn't attend a seminar and doesn't know that, it could potentially cost taxpayers some money
Yeah.
that, not having this not having this penalty
Sure.
waived.
Mhm.
Another thing that they discussed was that, unfortunately, there's so many disasters nowadays, and unfortunately, it seems like it's becoming a norm. But there's this HR 5863, the Federal Disaster Tax Relief Form of 2023, and they discussed that now it's retroactive back to 2021. And I believe it was December 12th or December 14th that IRS made it public or publicized it to the public that people can amend their tax returns as far as back as 2021 if they were in a FEMA declared federal disaster area. I mean, these are just some examples, Michelle, some of the things that are discussed in some of these meetings that directly affect taxpayers.
Mhm.
So I think it's so important to attend. So the big thing for 2025, at the end of this year, TCJA is set to expire, which is going to affect all of us. So we'll see what Congress comes up with at the end of the year.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for sharing. Like, it's so important to know these because there's so much money to be lost. People that have no idea. And I'm a big believer in having, especially as you build wealth, as you create, if you build your assets, your portfolio, you also need to build your team, right? Like
Yes.
you need to build your dream team and know that you are not the expert at everything. Nor, to be quite honest, nor do I want to do everything. I constantly get asked, from people like, "Oh, do you do everything yourself?" No, I do not, right? Because it would just be impossible. I would not be able to master everything. So it's important to have somebody like you on their team. And I know that you work mostly with personal taxes, correct? Can you correct me?
Yes, so for right now, I primarily serve clients who need to file individual tax returns, but also those that need to file that Schedule C. So who does a Schedule C, who's entitled to file that Schedule C, or who needs to file that Schedule C, if I may say, is that those people that are sole proprietors, the single member LLCs, or anyone as an independent contractor that gets paid that 1099 NECs, NEC and needs to file or claim those business expenses.
Yeah, thank you. So anybody who needs your help, please be sure that you connect with her, especially the season has begun. I create this vanilla folder at the entrance of my home. And the moment I see the envelope say tax, I'm like, there it goes, there it goes. And I just build and put it in there. It's just a way for me to keep track of my things as they're coming in. So I know that this is going to be a busy season for you. And we hope that some of you that are listening reach out to Nilda to help you file those taxes. And let's pivot a little bit now. That we're going to pivot a little bit into the BOI, which is one of the reasons that I wanted to connect with you. Can you explain to us as small business owners, or what is the importance of BOI? Who is mandating it? All those details, please.
Yes, I'll give you all the tea on the BOI. So the BOI stands for the Beneficial Ownership Information Report. So this report is actually mandated by the federal agency Financial Crimes Enforcement Network. We've been hearing FinCEN. This is not an IRS mandated report. So I'm sure maybe your community has seen that it's almost like a ping pong thing. Yes, it's enforced. No, it's not enforced. But I'm going to explain the original deadlines and who still or may needs to still file if this gets enforced. So who would need to file this BOI report? So anyone that registered has a business that is registered. I would say if you registered an LLC, if you registered an S Corp, if you registered a C Corp, basically, if you had to register with the state, with the Secretary of State. So the original deadlines were that if you created or registered a business prior to December 31st, 2023, we had until December 31st, 2024 to file that report. Now, people that created businesses in the tax year 2024, they had 90 days to file this BOI report. Now, why is this BOI report, so popular, or why is there so much attention? Because of the penalty fees. The potential penalty fees are $591 per day. Now, in
Hey,
December, go ahead, per day. Yeah, so
hey.
in December, there has been so much litigation about this BOI report. As of right now, as of this reporting, it is not enforced. Right now, the Supreme Court is going to look at the BOI, and eventually they will decide whether or not it's a yes, everyone needs to do it, or no, we don't need to do it, file a report. My personal recommendation would be that just go ahead and file the report. It's free. It is honestly one less thing to worry about. You don't want that potential 591 daily penalty out there. Just file the report, and you can file the report on their website.
Yeah, thank you. So, and is that something that you can assist with as well, Nilda?
If they have questions, they can contact me, but I highly recommend that it's very easy if they can just do it on the FinCEN website to file the report.
Yeah, and they actually have a really quick video on the website that it was like 5, 7 minutes on how to do it. So Thank you so much for that. Nelda, is there anything else that you would love to share with the community as we wrap up? Any tips, tricks as the season as we're here, right? This is a tax season. As we're gathering our documents, putting our stuff together. You know, for me, it's always sleepless nights, putting our things together. But anything that you would like to share with the community that would be helpful or beneficial?
Yeah, so I would like to share a few tips for your community, for those that are specifically W-2, for those that have a business, and then for overall for all your entire community. I promise I'll be quick. For those that have, for your community that they're strictly W-2, I would say to make sure that there's enough withholding from their taxes from their paychecks. If you file your taxes and you have a balance due, that's probably because there's not enough withholdings from your paycheck. Another thing that I constantly get asked from people that are just W-2 is that how can I reduce my taxes? Or how, I would say that the number one strategy is right now for if you're just a W-2 or you and your spouse would be to contribute as much as you can to your 401k or retirement accounts, specifically the 401k or a traditional IRA. My motto is that we can get loans for everything, but we cannot get loans for our retirement. So make sure you contribute to the 401k. For the people for the people in your community that have a job or have a business or are, who play the hat or have the role of a business owner, I would say the most important thing, and I always tell my clients, is to develop habits. In school, we are taught how to be employees, right? We're in school, you're in a business class, like, oh, when you work for the big firm and, you know, corporates and corporations and stuff like that. But so when we become self-employed as our own, it's like this new territory and we don't know what to do because we weren't taught what we needed to do to stay compliant. So some of the habits that I would recommend for some of your tribe or your community who self-employed is to get into the habit of putting 20% of your sales or revenue into a tax account, because you have the self-employment tax of 15.3%. And obviously these are the ones that are filing on Schedule C. And then we also have the tax portion. So here in Illinois, it's 4.95%. The other thing too that it's huge is to get into the habit of making those estimated payments in January and April and June and September. So that way, when the taxes are filed, you don't get that stomach ache because you didn't pay during the year. Now you're going to have a balance due. The other thing too is very boring. I would say save receipts and scan them if you can because they fade. But the receipts are the ones that are going to save you if there's a potential audit, not your bank statements. And for my clients, I always explain why the receipts. The receipts have all the information of all the evidence to really prove that what you purchased was for your business. And then last but not least, for my business owners, is that you must have a separate business account for your business. Do not commingle. You gotta give it the respect and you gotta have a business account and have that separate from your personal transactions. And last but not least, for everyone in your community, I would say if you are paying someone to prepare your taxes, ask all the questions that you want to ask. You shouldn't care who's behind you, who's waiting for you. You're paying that person to prepare your taxes. So make sure that they answer all your questions. And for any tax advice that is provided, whether it's your tax professional, social media, whoever it may be, always follow up, look up the IRS regulation. Always ask for where is this information coming from? Who is your source? Because if you receive bad information and you don't follow up and you act on that advice, it could potentially cost you money.
Yeah, especially nowadays, all these influencers on social media sharing. I constantly get these videos from friends like, is this true? Can you do this? So absolutely. I love the receipt tip versus the bank statement, just because I know a lot of people just like, well, it's I swiped it, it's in, there's a record. I still keep them in these yellow vanilla folders and I keep all kinds of receipts. I love that. I still have that old school mentality of like, I need everything on paper and scanned. Do you know of any, and I'm throwing this out there last minute, but do you know of any app that scans the receipts that people use or that somebody likes? Are you familiar with any of those apps? Because I know nowadays there's people that are like, just scan it and it goes to the app or whatever.
I don't have any names that come in mind, but I know, for instance, like I know QuickBooks has like a specific app, like if people use QuickBooks and stuff like that. So I'm sure there's a bunch of apps out there that scan receipts. But I think the most important thing, Michelle, is for people to get into the habit. So for instance, what I always have in my truck is to have an envelope. So if I go to Staples, immediately what I do is I put that receipt into the envelope. And I
Mhm.
always like to give the example of Target. So Target, we can buy everything, right? The cool, we can buy pens, papers, shampoo, all kinds of stuff, right? So if I'm gonna go buy something for my business and I'm gonna buy pens and paper, like I'm gonna go to the register and I'm gonna have that transaction be separate from my
Mhm.
other personal things. Because
Mhm.
even though Target, sells everything, and if I were to have an audit, they'd be like, what did you purchase at Target? It just says Chicago Target, $200, but the receipt is what's going to save me because it's going to say, oh, Nilda bought pens, she bought paper. Oh, I see this amount reflected on her business statement, bank
Mhm.
statement. So yeah, so always save your receipts.
Yeah, that's a good tip. What I do, because like I go shopping for the Airbnb stuff, is like, and I'll forget which Airbnb it goes to, whatever. At the register, I'm like, by the way, do you have a pen? And they kind of, and then like, so the moment they give me the receipt, I'll be like, whatever Airbnb, that way I keep track of it. Like I went to Aldi recently and they had these Aldi, above all places, right? Like who thinks that they had these amazing comforters at Aldi? And I'm like, oh my God, these would be perfect for the Airbnb. I'm like, that one I got to save. IRS, like, what are you buying at Aldi for the Airbnb, right? But they have this awesome like home section that I love. And I'm like, oh, this would be good. This would be good. And then for sure that one I was like, okay, I'm gonna put this, and it was comforters. But yeah, make sure that you separate it, get in the habit of asking for that pen if you need to, especially if you have multiple things. But those are some awesome tips and very helpful. Nelda, I thank you so much for taking some time this morning out of your busy schedule and pouring into my community. Thank you so much for the tips that you provided, which I will share with my Latina Moms Building Wealth Facebook private group. Nilda shared with us some amazing financial dates that we should know, and I will be sharing those with our community. So thank you so much for putting that together for the women in the group. And I just continue to hope that you're blessed, Nilda, and thank you for being such a blessing to the group and for pouring into my community.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you for this opportunity. It was a pleasure speaking with you and thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
One more thing, Nilda, if somebody wants to connect with you, an email that you want to provide or a page or anything like that, how people can connect with you?
They can connect with me via my website, www.exceltaxsolutions.com. They can also send me an email at info@exceltaxsolutions.com.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Have a blessed day.
Thank you. Thank you, Michelle.